So, welcome to the basics of the Agile Manifesto, at least the values part of it, and the Scrum values, and how we're going to take kind of a real world look into how to apply the values. One of the things to note is that we often misconstrue, or we hear and we study and we look at the values of the Agile Manifesto, and we kind of get them a little bit twisted. So, what I want to do is maybe reorient, maybe recenter you. To the values, and of course, you can read these all you want to, but how to effectively manage these expectations around that is something maybe a little bit different for you. So, we've all read this, the four values of the Agile Manifesto: individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. Now, I'm going to add and append here the five values of Scrum: commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. And you're going to see that appended to the bottom of each of the next slides while we walk through the values of the Agile Manifesto. But here's what I want you to get out of this: the word over is really, really, really important to us. Okay. The reason that the word over is so important to us is because you're going to find in each one of the four values of the Agile Manifesto that there's something on the left side, something on the right side, and one of these things we have a value over the other. So I think that's really important for us to understand. So let's jump into the first one right here, that we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Nobody said we don't value processes and tools when we're of an agile mindset, and that's the delivery that we're using. Nobody said that we don't value them. What we do value is processes and tools. Okay. We value those. However, there's a little disclaimer here. We value people in our transactions together over the processes and tools. So you think in terms of how to get an effective, highly productive, highly efficient team. That team is really going to be centered and focused around the interactions and the collaboration that they have together. So it's not enough for us to send out a cheat sheet or send out a checklist or send out some kind of document for everybody to read, right? And just check the box and say, yeah, I can do this, we can do that, we can do the other, and yeah, we can make sure that that we got that. Fundamentally, we want to correlate our value and our value system to help drive our behavior. And the individuals and interactions is really what we want to tend to focus on when we're in an agile delivery model. So, fundamentally, your collaboration, that's what's driving the productive and valuable efforts that's going on with your team. Just remember, we don't want to check a box. We want to make sure that we're delivering value. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that we're effectively communicating with each other. So that's why the individuals and interactions over processes and tools is a value that we got to hold true to. Now, again, at the bottom, commitment, courage, focus, openness, and respect. So when we're kind of reinforcing each of those five values of Scrum into the Agile Manifesto, into this area and this value that we're talking about, individuals and interactions, it's not to say that we're not going to have a process that we should value, that we're going to meet on a regular cadence, for example. It's not that we don't have any value or put any value into the tools that we're using, whether it be Jira, Rally, ServiceNow, or whatever. Those tools are probably something that helps us arrive at the goal and create the value for us. What we're saying, remember, keep in mind, and if you're coaching this to your organization, you got to really make sure you understand, because a lot of people miss this. A lot of people, when like project managers, PMO folks, executives, when they read this first value and they just take it at face value, right? You mean people who are in the agile thing, doing agile, right? That they don't value processes and tools? No, that's not the case. So keep this in mind, that each one of these values in the Agile Manifesto has one on the right, one on the left. One is valued over the other. Okay. So we just want to make sure that we're delivering value, right? And in order to deliver the value, again, let's have a look at this next one. We value working software, and see how I did this, right? Don't just throw out to your executives or to your PMO just the Agile Manifesto values first. Don't just throw it out as it is. I would recommend that you place on the top of the screen, like you see right here, we value working software over comprehensive documentation. So, are you guys following that? So, I don't have to tell you the history of how we got here with working software being valued over comprehensive documentation. You've all been through the FDD, BRD, um, whatever the whole big thing was, right? I don't have to tell you that. And so, tons of documentation and handoffs were all the core of the requirements that we used to do in the old days in the waterfall mechanisms, right? But in that methodology, again, I want to say this and I got to clarify. There are some projects, some initiatives, some efforts that do qualify and that do qualify for a waterfall uh, methodology. Okay, so not everything fits into the agile mindset mode here. Okay, so make sure you're understanding that. But all the tons of documentations and the handoffs, that was really at the core. So we went back to the first value and said, hey, the way that we do it in the waterfall world or the way that we do it in the large project world, right, is that we have these processes and these tools that we have to check the box on. We have to make sure that we have all of these little T's crossed and I's dotted so that we can get the documentation handed off to the team so the team can go off and work on the stuff. Well, this is a little bit different than what we're doing here. We really want to make sure that the software is working because that's why we're put together. We want to deliver working software. And so it's not to again say that we don't need any comprehensive documentation. We've always got business requirements that stories point back to. We've always got some kind of guidance that we're going to follow, or even somebody's creating that guidance or even a BRD, for example. We can still get that. The question is, does that focus get you to the working software? And are you improving that? Are you inspecting and adapting the way that that comprehensive documentation is leading you down the path to delivery? So, in a valiant attempt, right, to deliver what the customer was asking for, when we have comprehensive documentation and that's where we center our value, if we are solely focused on the value that we get from the comprehensive documentation, does that get us to production? Does that deliver working software? Or is it producing a lot of rework? Is it wasting stuff? Do we have obsolete functionality in that by the time we get to the end of the project, right? So that is, again, even if it made it production, right? So just because we're practicing agility, it doesn't mean that we don't write anything down. It doesn't mean that we just put a bunch of stickies on a whiteboard and a wall somewhere, like you see this one behind me, and then we're done, right? We value the documentation, but we really value the working software more. So again, appending at the bottom the 5 Scrum values, and you see how those tie together now when we're talking about focus, when we're talking about courage, and we're talking about respect. Okay, and commitment. All right, so we value customer collaboration over contract negotiation. We value, remember to put that at the beginning of your phrase when you're showing this to your executives and to your PMO, because if not, all they're going to read is the statement as it is: customer collaboration over contract negotiation. That means we don't negotiate anything, we don't have any contracts. That's not what it means. Let's get the context right behind contract negotiation. Um, Executives or business folks, a lot of times they're going to work with another silo and they're pigeonholing somebody to a strict timeline and a budget. That's kind of a contract negotiation in this context. Okay. They walk away, they got a contract in hand, it's signed, they agree to the terms, to the delivery structure, when they're going to get it, how they want it, the how and the what. All of that stuff is going to be negotiated in that contract. Well, what we're submitting in the Agile Manifesto is that the customer, the user, is engaged and collaborates while we're building it. Now, the customer and the user could be an internal user or a system, right? It could be an internal stakeholder. But agility is really based off of customer centricity. So let's keep that all in mind. But the thing is, with the contract negotiation, and you guys have seen it, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have contract and SLAs and negotiations in place. We should have all of those things. But what we don't want to do is program out all of the needs that we have to deliver this software with quality and with value, and hopefully do it on time or even faster than what we could have done it. Now, there's no guarantee in the faster part, so don't misunderstand that if you're a leader listening to this. But inspecting and adapting, right, and gaining consensus that we're building the right thing, that's paramount to what we do with the agile mindset, right, in agility in general. Okay, so as we're collaborating, as we are building it, we're collaborating on what we're building, we're collaborating on what we're committing to. That's where the value is. Okay, we want to value that over just simply writing something down, agreeing to the terms, and handing it off. It's not what we want to have happen there. So let's go to the last one here, responding to change over following a plan. Now, we're going to value responding to change over following a plan. Doesn't mean we don't have a plan, doesn't mean we have no value in plans. We've got to plan, okay? So context is important. There's so many reasons why I think that this value was established. So we're not in the business of doing exactly what the 147-page quick guide tells us to do, right? We're in the business of continual ideation, elaboration, construction, and transition. We're in the business of actually garnering feedback and having built-in checkpoints along the way that says, hey, we're doing the right thing, we're not doing the right thing, or maybe this is the right thing. Okay, so making sure that we understand that is really going to be important to us. So if we're using other values, okay, as our guide along with this one to get delivery optimized with value and quality, then we're on the right track. Okay, because that's where agility really comes to or comes to life, I guess, is responding to change. Now notice the word responding. It doesn't say reacting. We're not going to react to change every time somebody comes in and says, no, we're going to do it, pull the plug and go over it. No, that's we're not going to react to change, we're going to respond to change. So frequent demos, that's a good way to start with this, right? Responding to change. Frequent demos helps you respond to change. Smaller chunks of work with built-in quality checkpoints, that is an excellent way to respond to change. So all of these things kind of make up the journey of the delivery. And in agility, remember, we're trying to stay and remain client centric and customer focused, right? So if we're doing these frequent demos and smaller chunks of work so that we can build in quality and build in quality checkpoints along the way, then we're able to respond to the changes that are needed as we're inspecting and adapting. Okay. So I wanted to make sure that we covered those. And before we get out of here, I just wanted to say a few things about this intro video. uh, a lot of times there's a lot of confusion out there in the world and in what we do here as far as what it is that these values really represent and mean. Okay. And if you just simply throw out those four statements as they are to an executive committee or to a PMO group, if you're trying to get your push for agile delivery or for some kind of even semi scaled model, I would highly recommend that you put the statement, we value first in front of each one of those, because that sets the whole tone and the context for the statements that are going to follow that in the Agile Manifesto. So I hope that's helpful to you today. I look forward to the next one here where we'll follow up a little bit more on some of the artifacts and some of the basics of Scrum and some of the basics of agility. So hope you found this video helpful. Please, I look forward to your comments and your replies here. Thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't, whatever, right? So we'll see you soon.